Welcome back to the Inner Voice. Today we are sitting with a mental health specialist, Dr. Imran Versi. We are very glad to have you here. Dr. Imran Versi is a medical doctor currently specializing in psychiatry. He completed 5 years of medicine and 1 year of internship in Tanzania. And he worked for 2 years, and currently you're doing masters in psychiatry. That's right. We're going to talk about mental health in youth in 3 episodes. The first episode will be about anxiety and depression amongst the youth. Second episode would talk about substance use and drug use, and the third one would talk about mental health and home environment. We are very glad to have you, Dr. Imran Versi.
Thank you.
So our first question would be on the topic of mental health on anxiety and depression for the youth. So a lot of people talk about anxiety and depression in youth. Could you enlighten us on that, please?
Thank you. So to answer your question first, so break it down into anxiety and then depression. So anxiety basically, anxiety disorders are a group of mental illnesses that cause overwhelming fear to a certain individual. So for example, an individual might not be able to cope with a certain situation. There's a constant fear, worry, dread that something bad is going to happen and they won't be able to cope with it. And on the other hand, teen depression, depression commonly found in teenagers, is a very serious and global mental health problem that causes a persistent feeling of sadness, overwhelming sadness, and loss of interest in activities that previously were interesting to the individual. And so depression can cause someone to have behavioral, psychological, physical changes in their body as well.
Right. But how bad is this depression amongst youth?
So, you look at data from for both depression and anxiety. You look at any survey, any research, be it from the National Institute of Health, any mental health survey. You'll find that from the year 1998 all the way up to 2006, and then from 2007 up to pre-COVID, 2017, 2018, and 2019 onwards, the trajectory of cases for anxiety and depression has always been extremely high, and it's getting worse by the day.
That's right. Exactly. So what's causing the rise of severe anxiety in our teenagers, and how did we come to this point?
So before we move forward, we need to realize one thing. Anxiety and especially depression has no single cause or specific cause, just one cause. No, it's multifactorial. Life events has a part to play. Hormones have a part to play. Chemical imbalances have a part to play. Genetics has a part to play as well in all of this. But generally speaking, facing a traumatic event, a tragic event in someone's life could cause someone to go into this. Losing a loved one, many people who are in the grief period can, or after that as well, can experience such symptoms of anxiety and depression. Or even, for example, since we're talking about the youth now, bullying in both forms, be it physical bullying at school or even cyberbullying, which is very, I think, more common now as compared to physical bullying. Bullying via the internet can also lead to such mental health problems. So these are some of the causes. When you look at other practical causes as well, one of the causes is high expectations and pressure to succeed. So, for example, you can relate that to typical Indian families, whereby the parents are really pressure the child into overperforming with regards to academics. In India as well, we see that the rate of suicide in teenagers is very high, especially those going to university. And that is because sometimes the parents really put a lot of pressure in their children with regards to several forms of performances, especially academic performance. You need to get a 95, otherwise you're grounded, otherwise no food for you, otherwise. So this is one extreme level which causes such problems. And another big factor in today's time that was not there before, and which could explain the trend in anxiety and depression, the graph going up, is social media. The problem with social media is many of us many people like to compare their lives to the lives of those people posting various things, right? So for example, if someone has financial instability and he looks at someone posting pictures and videos of him having luxurious cars and houses and bank balance, etc., there's a feeling of low esteem within that person. When somebody is unhappy in their lives, in their relationship, or at school, or at work, or any form of unhappiness or sadness in their life, or a gap in their life, and they look at social media whereby people post the good parts in social media. Nobody would post what they're suffering. But that person will now relate, and there's a sense of low self-esteem, worthlessness, like what am I doing in my life? I'm useless. Look at this person, academic, look at this guy, he studied with me and now he has reached somewhere else with regards to position, rank, academic, achievements, financial position, etc. So social media has really created this stir and has really it's a really challenging part for mental health specialists in dealing with such people.
Right. So what are some of the symptoms of somebody who has anxiety or depression?
Good question. So with regards to symptoms or signs, it would be easy for us to categorize it into two. So emotional changes and behavioral changes. So emotional changes are, for example, feelings, as I said, of worthlessness, of guilt, of emptiness. Persistent feeling of sadness. You could have, the person could have trouble thinking, trouble concentrating, trouble making decisions in life, frustrations over small things, fear of rejection, for example, emotions, haywire, and of course suicidal ideations, thinking of dying or attempting suicide, etc. These are all emotional changes that can occur in somebody with these type of conditions. So with regards to the behavioral changes, you will find that people who have depression, for example, they'll have trouble sleeping. Again, it could be of two types. Some people have insomnia, which is inefficient sleep or lack of sleep, whilst other people sleep a lot, especially during the day. They end up sleeping a lot. People they get fatigued very quickly. Another sign is you'll find that people will be either excessively eating, what we call binge eating, or just stop eating at all, and starve themselves, right? You could have all of these symptoms, behavioral changes, or when we're talking about the youth, for example, you'll find that their academic performance has now dropped down, poor grades. And of course, one of the major setbacks of this condition is that there's a high chance people end up taking drugs to boost themselves, to get that temporary feeling of energy, of high, etc. So these are the emotional and behavioral changes that we find in people with depression and anxiety as a general concept.
Which we'll talk about in the second part of this.
For the drug use, yeah. Specifically, these are symptoms for depression, but for the drug use, inshallah, we'll be discussing that in our next episode.
So what can parents, teachers, and anyone else who is interacted with the children or youth do to influence or treat this from youth?
Okay, you mean what can teachers or parents do to prevent their children from going through depression or anxiety? Okay, it's a good question. So with regards to parents, okay, so first thing is, for both parents and teachers, is they need to watch out for something that's called red flags. So a child trouble concentrating in class, the child was, or the youth was doing well before, and now currently suddenly his grades are dropping, he's not paying attention in class, he's bunking school, right? Or you will also find other red flags. For example, somebody was really interested in playing football before, he used to go every day for football, but now suddenly he just refuses to go for football anymore. The parents ask him why, he has no explanation. He just says, I just feel like secluding myself, social isolation. So these are the red flags to watch out for. However, one other way to prevent, and this is a very important point, is parents' interaction with the children. Unfortunately, in today's time and age, you'll find that parents do not spend quality time with their children.
Right.
You'll find that parents don't engage or have a meal with their children. You'll find the children, I understand there's school and parents have to go to work. However, there's always some time that we can squeeze in, be it dinner or post-dinner, after dinner. But nowadays you'll find the children just grab their food and go into their own rooms, socially isolate themselves. The father comes home, the child doesn't know that the father has returned from work. There's no interaction between parents and children, and we've been seeing this. We've been seeing several cases right in several communities and outside as well. So watch out for the red flags. Parents really need to engage with their children, spend quality time with them, be less informal, as informal as possible.
Exactly.
And of course, if anyone, they either themselves or somebody, or they know of someone who is experiencing these symptoms and these signs, then contact a mental health specialist. There have been instances here whereby a person with depression had gone to a counselor, and there was misdiagnosis, mismanagement, and he ended up killing himself. Herself. And later on, when they found out, when they researched and they inquired, they found out that that person was not even a mental health professional. So this is something that's quite trendy now, whereby a person would declare, people declare themselves as counselors, like every 1 in 3 people, mashallah, is a counselor, which is not the case. So we really need to, go to qualified professionals who are able to guide and diagnose and manage the condition appropriately. So these are the few ways in which parents, teachers, and the general public can help people with such conditions.
Right. Dr. Imran, we're very glad to have you here. This was the first session with us. We'll do the next session very soon, and the second episode will talk about drug use and substance use.
Right.
We'll see you and catch you up in the second video. Thank you very much.
Thank you.